We're smooth 98.1 FM. Good morning and welcome to Freshly Pressed on a very wet Wednesday. And it all depends. We just hope that you're safe and probably you are canoeing your way down to the office, or you're motoring your way down to the office, or you're just probably wading through the waters to the office. Safety at the destination is what we wish you at this time. Maybe it's also time to test your swimming skills also, but let's make welcome our guest this morning for Freshly Pressed. Lakunle Yusuf is also here with us. Good morning, Lakunle.
Morning, Omas. It's a wet day. You should find that song and play for us this morning. Wet, wet, wet. Any song from Wet, Wet, Wet.
Okay, maybe a magic. If I do a magic for Shek this morning, it would be like you want to rub salt on everything. So
Please,
I'm trying to
please
move
don't.
it.
Please don't.
Okay. I might be classified as being insensitive, so that's why I stayed away from magic. It's a usual suspect on days like this. Good morning, Devoe. Good morning to you. Situation report, where are thou?
Good morning, world. Lagos, Omas, smooth. Yes. A
Are you
cool rain
are you
or
swimming to the
heat.
studio?
Yes, we've swam past the lagoon. We're nearing the
Okay.
jetty.
All right. The safety is just get to hear your voice and know you guys are ready at every time to help us break down the papers, no matter the weather, is what we really do appreciate. But let's pick up the papers this morning by letting you know you can also be part of the conversation if you send us your thoughts across to 0809 444 0981 will be where we read your thoughts this morning. You can also get to see the live stream on youtube.com/smooth 981 FM Lagos. You can also X at us at smooth 981 FM Lagos. That used to be Twitter, but now it's X. So let's go on to Devoe. Devoe, let's pick up the Vanguard newspaper and see CBN, that's the Central Bank of Nigeria, raises interest rates to 26.25%. That's what the report is all about. Are you surprised that it was raised by 150 basis points from the last time?
Well, it's no surprise to those who understand how the economy works. I think I will just break it down. 150 basis points, that's to 26.25% from 24.75. Yes, that's a lot of gibberish for most Nigerians. This is a real deal. Because headline inflation, which is all the increased costs that people have been experiencing in various sectors of the financial expenditure, from food to health to school fees, payments of items abroad, importation, literally the hike in pricing across every aspect. Even though the MBS puts it at 32, I think to the pockets, to what people are experiencing, it is around between 40 and 60, depending on what you're buying. And obviously, we know the root of that came from the removal of subsidy as well as the FX harmonization, which took our FX rates up. And being a high import nation, obviously, the strength of the naira almost, would I say, started to reveal its market rates. Okay. Now, the CBN, obviously, from a monetary point of view, had no option than to raise rates. Normally, rates are used to contain inflation. And the simple reason is, for example, just so that you understand, if your savings rate is at 10% and your inflation is at 12 or 15, it makes complete nonsense of your savings. So what happens is that you have to have an interest rate that is higher than the current inflation to ensure something for you at the end of the day. However, in as much as this is usually the story that is pushed out there, what is the impact on the people? With higher interest rates, what it means is that the banks will take money, that's the cost of fund, they will take it at about 26, 27%, and will add their own charges on top, and you'll be seeing rates from the banks between 33 to 40%. So it obviously means borrowing money or loaning money is going to cost much more. However, which means only those who do businesses that can give them such returns can take it. So it has a direct impact on the real sector. Also, the issue is not even about interest rates, and that's really not where we want to focus on. The real problem is that the CBN, that's the Monetary Authority, through the governor, Cardoso, the interest rates hike or monetary policies are limited in their ability to impact the economy versus the fiscal policy measures. Little do we hear understand that it's the fiscal policy, and the fiscal policy is seated on the table of the finance minister, coordinating minister of the economy. And what does fiscal policy speak to? Fiscal policy is just basically what is a roadmap to making money, to becoming productive as a nation. Now, many attempts have been made, but how effective have they been? The removal of subsidy and the FX harmonization were fiscal policy measures. Now, was it followed through? Meaning, what were the other steps that needed to be taken? E.g., from a 1 or 2 point agenda fiscal policy point. One, have we called the state of emergency on energy, meaning Nigeria's ability to produce and refine its own crude? 1, 2, our ability to use our hydro, gas capacities, assets to produce electricity. Some of these measures would directly impact on the economy and thereby not only reducing prices in the market, but engineer productivity.
Okay,
Number 3, agriculture. We can't feed ourselves at this point. And because of the high interest rates and high FX price, importing food obviously will hit Nigerians at a higher rate. These are the measures you want to see the country, that's the renewed hope agenda, being led. When I say being led, not just by the president now, the Minister of Finance and the coordinating minister of the economy, taking action in a targeted fashion to address some of these matters, because there's no point discussing monetary policy. Monetary policy is like the steering wheel. The fiscal policy is the engine. If you don't have an engine and you're just playing around, you're playing if you're on the steering. You need an engine to move.
All right, Devoe, let's go over now to Lakunle. Now, Lakunle, the Guardian newspaper is what we're picking up next. And the headline, which we need you to help us break down, is how the federal government approves $750 million World Bank funding for mini grids construction in rural areas. What is this geared towards? And the first time I see from the story on electrified, so we get on financial inclusion, we're going to have electricity inclusion right now, but walk us through the story.
Okay, so $750 million. Both you and I know that this is not the first time we are getting funding for rural electrification. Several years ago, I think it was during the General Babangida time as military president, that we set up a rural electrification board. And I think even as recent as last year, there was a matter of some monies being unaccounted for, missing in that agency. So there is a long history of rural electrification attempts in Nigeria. Now, so this fund, for me, the matter in it is the applicability of it. We all know that Nigeria is in a state where power is a major thing. Devoe just spoke to agriculture, our not being able to feed ourselves. The reason being that much of our products gets lost to waste, to non-prioritization, because most of the places where these things are produced don't have electricity as a base for processing, or the first level of processing that will probably help us to preserve or get those products to where they can be easily consumed or where they can be further processed for exports. Now, I'm also a believer in the fact that it's been too long coming that we have a centralized electricity distribution for the whole country. I mean, Nigeria is too big to just have one centralized distribution system. So these smaller grids will help us to at least achieve a little bit of independence, so we can take away those people who need this electricity. The important thing is now, for this fund, will we be able to account for the use it is meant for? If it is done with this report says that they are looking at 1,200 rural communities. I hope the politics of it would not destroy or limit the the reality or the effectiveness of what it is supposed to achieve. Those are the kind of things we hope that some of the decisions we need to take that needs to help our economy to grow, so that we're not limited by what CCN and the GENCOs can do, who are only able to provide not more than 5,000 megawatts for the whole of Nigeria to consume. By the time these 1,200 communities get their own from the off-grid, I hope that it will contribute in no small measure to our electricity demand. And I also hope that the monies will be spent wisely.
All right, Devoe, let's get across to you now and see if you can get this Punch newspaper as dry as possible, even though we know you are having to swim across right now. But let's see what the headline speaks of. Retired police officers storm National Assembly protest over unpaid pension. That's coming from the Punch newspaper. Devoe, do you know if they've got permission for this protest?
Well, yes, I mean, you're speaking straight to the point that some what they call essential service officers, and that refers to the police, to the fire service people, and medical officers. Under their oath, they're not, in quotes, allowed to protest without permission. How?
But now they're retired, so can they protest? And with what it is, they're not bind, but they're not being held now by the oath any longer, are they?
As you know, pension is the small savings that is given to you from the income that you have earned while you were in service. All right, and the retired police officers, it doesn't state how many months they've been unpaid, but it does say that it was not the first time. It had happened in September 2021, where officers from 27 states stormed the National Assembly. Now, the point is this. I think this was what I call it engineered or triggered by the last, what I call it, the last misunderstanding on the finance minister's statements that the federal government would legally access the pension funds. And many people misunderstood what he was saying. And basically, pension funds under the contributory scheme that come to about 14 trillion are already invested in federal government bonds. So literally the federal government, not that it has its hands in it, but they invest them to ensure they make a turnover on the pension that you have kept, to ensure that anytime you retire, money is available to pay you. Now, I think this section, the retired officers, seize that opportunity to start complaining once again. And the question is, why haven't they been paid their pensions? Pensions should never be something that a month is missed about. It's even small. Some of them get pensions as low as 30,000 naira a month, which is 1,000 naira a day. Why do we still withhold, or what are the reasons? Someone's head should roll, because pensions, it's something that no one should play with. Now, what I believe is that the federal government, not just the federal, state governments are very, what I call it, notorious for not paying pensions. I think it was one of the big moves the Abia state governor made when he came into office, by paying pensions and gratuities to ex-civil servants. If people have worked, they're due their wages. It's a political tool to actually connect with the people. In this case, they're not asking for more, they're just asking for what is due. So I hope there will be at least a response, if not from the Police Civil Service Commission. It's not good that people who have given themselves into the service of this nation, especially in essential services where they don't have the right of protest, are toyed or played with after they have left service. We must treat them better.
Devoe, yeah, noted. We must treat our veterans after they put in their productive years to service and protection of the nation, not have to make them protest over, like what he said, 30,000 naira minimum. And what does that do with the inflation we see at this time now? But yes, you want to quickly put in a word now, Lakunle.
These are the kind of things that those currently in service see.
that will happen to them when they leave that makes them do what they do while they are in service. I don't want to see more than that.
All right, let's go on to have you say more with the Daily Trust newspaper headline now. No, let's go over to the next story that is related to that's the Punch newspaper, where reps seek waiver of airport train station toll gate fees for armed forces. That's what we see here. So which page of the in-book is the National Assembly or the reps singing from? And which page is the executive arm singing from when they held the NEC meeting last week?
While one understands the reasoning, right? Honor our armed forces, respect them, treat them well, and all that. I do not think part of honoring or respecting them is to be exempting them from paying for services they consume, just like every other citizens. They are soldiers. When they are on duty, maybe the duties does not include passing through tolled roads, does not include using the airports. So, for example, if I'm a soldier and I'm going for an Owambe in Ibadan, for example, and let's assume Lagos Ibadan Expressway is tolled, and my soldiers are with me and we're driving in our official vehicles, am I on official duty? Should I be exempted to pay the toll gate fee at that point? So what I would rather think is part of the respect, honor that we should do them is to pay them well, pay them their duty allowances as at when due, give them good living conditions in their barracks if they live in the barracks, have insurance, group life insurance for them, some form of education benefit or insurance for them and for their children or something, not to ask them not to pay fees. You see, part of the problems we go through in Nigeria is that when a law is made, everybody goes to seek an exemption for himself or for somebody who is. So by the time everybody goes exemption, at the end of the day, the law becomes useless. So on that basis, I think that this is not the right way to honor them. They should also pay these things, but we should honor them in the things that is right, that is due to them.
Thank you very much, Lakunle, for that thought. And let's hope that the authorities are listening and the lawmakers too, they get the memo. And so we begin to see how, even though there's separation of powers, there is a way they find a meeting point when they begin to talk about these issues. Let's go to Devoe. Lagos records high domestic violence cases. That's according to the Vanguard newspaper. What's going on in our homes? Is that a reflection of what's going on in the country right now? Violence, and speak us into this paper.
Yes, it is a very direct connection between the state of the economy and what is going on in our homes. Obviously, this is an indicator that things are not well because Lagos State government, through the Commission of Women Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Mrs. Bolaji Dada was revealing on Tuesday during the ministerial press briefing commemorating the first anniversary of the second term of the Sanwo-Olu Hamzat administration. She said a total of over about 700 cases were received within the last 1 year, right? Of which about 600 were women and about 70 plus were men. And basically, these cases were based on domestic violence, okay? And literally issues concerning sexual and gender-based violence have become a problem. Some of them came in physical form, some of them came through the Lagos Emergency Line, and generally they're looking at various initiatives to support women and men in this time in terms of empowering them. And what is happening here is basically when the economy is tough, when things are hard for people, when people cannot take care of their welfare, especially families, and you're talking about a man and a wife and his 4 children, or a man and 3 or 4 wives and their 16 children. This is the reality of Nigeria. Now, when you cannot meet your needs, the tensions at home begin to heighten. Why? Because you cannot afford school fees, you cannot afford the usual luxuries, you cannot even afford the basic feeding, meaning either you're eating twice a day or once a day or none at all. There are many people who can't even feed. I'm sure,
Devoe,
especially, yes, please.
Devoe, you talked about the tension at home heightening, and does that tension increase, includes tension that is conjugal or sexual related? And that's what at this point.
Yeah, so that's what they were saying, that it now leads to confrontation, okay, both on the man and the woman. So like you can see about 70 cases were men, meaning they were beat up by their husbands, sorry, by their
Your wife.
wives. And the majority, obviously about 600 cases were women. And these are the ones that are reported. We are clearly aware that there are many domestic violence cases that are unreported. At this point, patience has left the house. And what happens is very little with such tensions on how to stay alive. You're most likely to take it out on your own people. So whilst it's expected that government does the needful to actually reduce the pressures on Nigerian homes, and we're talking about Lagos in this instance, every state government needs to be having sensitization programs as well as temporary relief programs. And the temporary relief programs, how do you empower both men and women so that they can have sufficiency to take care of their basic needs?
It is still freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM. We just would get your messages across in a short while. Just send them across to 0809 444 0981.
Himself and his family.
Reacting to the headline stories we've picked up this morning on Freshly Pressed. Lakunle, you were just going to chime in on something Devoe was talking about a while ago.
Yes. So for me, having highlighted what the problems are, right? So what are the possible solutions apart from the economic one? From time immemorial, everybody comes to Lagos and says that even before, as children in our villages, we had that Lagos na jungle. So everybody comes to Lagos with a different mindset that I must fight for everything. You fight to enter the bus, you fight to come off the bus, you fight to everything is a struggle, right? So the aggression, the aggressive nature of man comes to the fore all the time. So I think that at this point, all of us, don't let me exclude myself at this point, we need some form of reflection, some form of mental health assistance in this matter. Some may not be due to all of those things that we have said, may just be that there's just the build up of all of this. That's what it results to in people, and the only way they know how to express themselves, that's how it is. So some of us, we need medical help, we need psychiatric help. When they say you go to psychiatric hospital, it does not mean the person is mad. This is part of the things that they're supposed to solve. And then the punishment for all of those things, like we hear most of the laws in Lagos, gender-based violence, domestic violence, you look at the laws, most of the time it is punitive, jail, fine. We could also look at it from the health perspective, that this person is not doing this thing of his own volition. There's something he cannot control of himself or herself that makes them resort to that. So we should also look for medical solutions to this problem.
All right, thank you very much. Let's get over to see what the messages are saying. I've got Adegboyega Adedeji, who says, you can see the result of unprepared, unplanned, and accidental presidency has caused the nation. Someone just woke up from his nightmares and said subsidy is gone without proper economic consultations and planning. The result of that singular action is why we are where we are today. Adegboyega Adedeji's thoughts this morning. Now we reach out to Gilbert Musa from Festac, I see, and his thoughts this morning says, on construction of mini grids for rural electrification, we can look back at the Yakubu Gowon's era of 1967 to 1975, where rural electrification recorded significant success, and adopt the master plan and upgrade it. That's what Gilbert Musa says. So if that money, $750 million US, is to be spent wisely, it might just be nice to dust up Yakubu Gowon's master plan, update it a bit, and then use it to implement for let there be light in every part of Nigeria. Joseph Menyer's thought from Silver State Ejibo says, well, the government should simply empower all security agencies and arms of government rather than exemption. That's how military men enter commercial buses and claim staff and not pay. So you see that mentality now. It's an extension, like we feel we should have it.
Exactly.
Okay. Now let's go to Babatunde Alao's message from, that should be Isheri, GRA. Okay, and it says, it says, I groan within when I hear unpaid pension when all the years of funds have been there for government to invest. Cluelessness, corruption, and wickedness is the issue with the pension board and the government. Now, one is tempted to ask, those who work at these offices, pension offices, wouldn't they someday also be due for pension? Would they like it if they suffer this system?
Just like I said earlier, that they see this they see this happen, right?
Yes.
So everybody wants to protect that future, so they won't come to queue up like they've caused some people to queue up. So they misappropriate the funds. The corruption that you see in all of those places is built on this thing, and all of this, if we look back again, like somebody said, somebody woke up from his dreams one day and decided to sack more than half of the federal civil service without notice, nothing, no recourse to any courts, nothing, just overnight, and people who were left behind saw it happen. This could also happen to me. And the basis, the foundation for all the rubbish and nonsense we see today started with that. And it continues to get worse and worse because there are no consequences to it. And so just like you said, I am there now. I will do all I need to do so that I won't suffer what these guys come to suffer. But it is also bad for the system because those guys still suffer it anyway.
So let's Allows message continue saying, on the issue of domestic violence, simply bad and clueless economy will heighten the pressure and tensions in families, and some leads to violence. Lagos being a place where cost of living is extremely high will put it on the top list on domestic violence as stated. Ababatunde Allows thoughts this morning. We've got 2 minutes. Devoe, we're back to you. Is Devoe still connected, or is the rain has washed off itself?
We're swimming, we're here.
All right, Devoe, let's quickly have you sum this up for us in about a minute. From the Punch newspaper, federal government launched Center for Data Collection to boost security. I thought this was
it's part of the security architecture.
Yes.
That if you know how security works in the world now, it's a matter of science, and that has to do with intelligence. Some things can be prevented, some things can be minimized, and some things can be addressed squarely if you have the necessary information or intelligence about them. As the military and police would always say, whatever you see, if you hear, please give us updates. So here, this data collection center has been created through the Ministry of Interior. And I'm hoping that the whole idea is to share information. They haven't explained in full how this is going to work. But what we expect is that between our security forces, from the domestic police to the NCDC to the even the JTF, as well as the military and all their arms, and as well as the DSS, that and all the other organs like the satellites organization agency of this country will work to be able to feed each other data. I mean, we see it in movies all the time in other crimes, whereby anytime there's an incident or an incident is being planned, Omas, I don't know, you know those systems now, those robotic systems that start bringing out information, the person's profile, the name, where they've been, where they went to school,
and all that, yeah.
Yes, who was their girlfriend in 1984. All these issues are data that exist so that you can be able to address issues squarely. And it's about time we elevate our security architecture to a data-driven form of architecture. Enough of the using hoes and cutlasses to try and address 21st century problems. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Devoe. But Lakunle, I also like you to chime in a bit here because I see, just help me understand what it means, because they say the state-of-the-art data center will be 1.4 petabytes. How big is this one?
Well,
what does that mean?
You know the way technology is these days. All this English is just used to try to impress us. Petabytes is just talking about the size of what can be stored, and then state of the art, just like we say world class, all that. All those are just trying to impress us with. The important thing is that they have a data center. We have all these things in silos all over the place. Your telco has it, your bank has it. Everywhere you go, somebody's taking your name, your this, your that, your passport, everything. Just get all these things together into one single position into place, and then collect data about people. You can then do facial scan. When I'm driving on the road, you can link it to whatever it is from anywhere, so you can identify me wherever I am, and so on and so forth. That's just the idea.
Final message, Fabian from Ekwe says, another reason for the rise in domestic violence is that authorities are going after cases more actively and more people are reporting now. We need to be taught and trained on anger management and communication. This is key factor in a lot of domestic violence cases. Fabian from Ekwe's thought, and that's a wrap on the show this morning. I say thank you to Devoe Okorie for your time on Freshly Pressed today. Devoe? Lakunle, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, and don't forget my wet. Oh. You have to find one and play.
Why does it sound like wet here in a way? But I just...
It's a rock band.
Okay.
I love them.
No problem. Thank you so much for sending the messages this morning. We're smooth 98.1 FM. The locker room is up next at 8:15. Stay tuned.